Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, under Rule 5, under the rules on pretrial detention, the Supreme Court has directed that the court may consider numerous factors, including the nature and circumstances of the offense charged, which in this case are, for the most part, child abuse, but also child abduction, custodial interference on the part of Siraj Ibn Wahaj, and also harboring a felon by Mr. Morton. The court should also consider the weight of the evidence against the defendant on those matters. The court may consider the history and characteristics of the defendants, including the defendant's character, medical conditions, family ties, past and present residences, length of residence in the community, community ties, and past conduct. Your Honor, the state's view of this evidence is this, and what we would argue to the court. This was not a camping trip, and this was not a simple homesteading of the kind that many people do in northern New Mexico. The evidence as a whole suggests that this family was on a mission, and it was a violent one, and it was a dangerous one, and it sheds a lot of light, I think, for the court in terms of reasonable inferences of future dangerous conduct, which is the point of the hearing today. It's clear from a number of the elements of the evidence that the family as a whole was strongly anti-government in terms of their actions here in moving to New Mexico and the way they set up their home. Various members of them lied to the police on several occasions on the way up here. Siraj Wahaj lied to the police in Alabama about being married to Jenny LeVay. He lied about going to New Mexico and camping in a way that made the officer at the scene suspicious. He expressed this in his report, which is in the evidence proffered to the court. Mr. Morton seems to have lied to the police in Georgia about knowing where Mr. Siraj and Abdul Ghani were. He had just gone and retrieved them from this accident. The agent testified to evidence coming from the children. We're in an excellent position to know that the entire family came to New Mexico around that time, December, January. Mr. Morton then appeared back in Georgia and would tell the officer nothing and denied knowing where they were. The kids were taught firearms training, including advanced techniques of firearms training for the purpose of resisting basically the government, the police, the FBI, if they came to their home. And the evidence suggests they nearly did that. It's clear that firearms were readily available in the camper where people were living. They were also readily available at the end of the tunnel, which the family had ready access to. There was a firing range on the premises. It was used for rifle practice, pistol practice, etc. So the slant generally of this family was quite a mindset of potential violence toward the government, and that came from the children. The evidence shows that Siraj Ibn Wahaj had extensive firearms training, which he obtained in a way that got both the teacher's attention, and it's being unusual, and also the attention of the FBI. There was body armor found on the premises. Counsel for the defendants are right. Some of these weapons are used for hunting. There's no evidence that body armor is used for hunting. And along with all of those other circumstantial elements, there was a book on building an untraceable AR-15. Untraceable obviously means to confound government resources for tracing weapons. That's the only relevance to being traceable or not. There's a book on being a better warrior. And if you look, Your Honor, at the third page of that three-page exhibit, it gives a summary about the purpose of that book. This is exhibit number 34, Your Honor.
And Your Honor, the issue here is that I do think we need basically to make this record very clear, especially if there is a need for the Court of Appeals. I think there does need to be findings in terms of which of these exhibits are coming into evidence.
They come into evidence, Mr. Hostage, admitted them into evidence. So go ahead about your report, Mr. Hostage.
Your Honor, on the third page of that exhibit, there's a highlighted portion at the top. It highlights portions of the summary explaining the contents of this book. And so it talks about the stress of combat, talks about avoiding PTSD. And on the fifth line, it talks about the development of the physical and psychological leverage that enables humans to kill other humans. That's what the content of this book is about, Judge. Your Honor, in the context of all of this, there is a perhaps innocent visa for Siraj Wahhaj to travel to Saudi Arabia. And this is Exhibit 35, and I would point out it says Hajj visa. I understand that Muslims once in their lifetime are required, I believe, to make the Hajj, to visit Mecca. And it may be as innocent as that. But I also know that in this day and age, there are concerns about some people leaving the U.S., going to the Middle East, coming back with training and undertaking violent actions.
You're not suggesting that I just make that leap?
No, Your Honor, I'm not. But I'm saying the court can consider all of this evidence together. And when you have high-powered weapons, when you have children telling you they were trained for the purpose of, one, attacking law enforcement, and two, getting rid of some unnamed institutions in the future, I think it's relevant. The court can give it whatever way, the court wishes. But that is part of the state's proffer, that these are concerns about future dangerous conduct that interlock. So they give relevance to each other. Your Honor, there are 5 defendants here. We've talked about Mr. Wahhaj, Siraj Wahhaj owning these weapons, talked about Mr. Morton's role in bringing the family here, in buying the land. It is the state's view that all of these adults are culpable for the mission of the whole. And all of these circumstances suggest a high level of danger of future violent actions. So Siraj ibn Wahhaj kidnapped his son basically from the mother. He owns the firearms. He obtained this extensive training, and he trained the children, 13 and 15 years old. He lied to the Alabama police. Maybe he wrote this letter, Exhibit 11, not sure who wrote the letter, but it was delivered by his brother-in-law, and basically is inviting Siraj Wahhaj's brother Muhammad to come join them, to come join the righteous, I believe is the way he phrased it. And it was brought by Lucas Morton, so the appearances are under all the rest of the circumstances, that it came from the family, and it's basically an invitation to New Mexico. Take the money out of the bank, bring your guns, and come and join us. The Lucas Morton, defendant Lucas Morton, bought the land. He appears to have brought the family there. He obviously knew that his brother-in-law had kidnapped his son. The officer in Georgia told him they were looking.
He's absolutely mischaracterizing the evidence that's actually been presented.
Your Honor, the evidence presented was that the Georgia police officers encountered Lucas Morton in Georgia and told him they were looking for them. Mr. Morton told him he didn't know where they were. That was in December of 2017. Mr. Morton brought this letter, the evidence is, from Muhammad himself to the Georgia police. Mr. Morton brought this letter that says, come, die as a martyr as you wanted. The only way is to join us. Don't tell your father.
Again, Your Honor, that's never, there was
You
no
don't have a
testimony.
chance to argue with the prosecution. You just-
Thank you,
I
Your
just
Honor.
think it's disingenuous to mischaracterize the evidence repeatedly.
Your Honor, the evidence shows that Jenny LeVay, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing her name, I'm not sure how to do that, that she had some sort of authority to direct the rest of the family in what they were doing in these very significant rituals that seem to be at the heart of their existence here and seem to be tied to the tragic loss of one of the children, to the knowledge of all the others, including all the children. Suvana Wahaj, Your Honor, for the evidence that we have, it appears that she sent this Facebook message. She was able to reach out to someone outside this community and ask that they send food and money to fight off starvation, if you look at that exhibit of the Facebook message. But do not tell anyone, even her family. She had an opportunity to reach beyond this group. The message wasn't, please help us get out of here because we're here against our will, because the men are in charge of us. The message was, no, don't tell anyone else. Help us here. Bring food and money so that we can continue what we're doing. And I think that implicates her, Your Honor, in this total family picture, the willingness to pursue this collective goal, which is a violent one and which is a dangerous one. And so I think that each of the 5 defendants is collectively responsible for establishing the compound, for supporting that effort, for hiding from law enforcement, hiding Siraj Wahaj and the child who died because of it, for keeping the child hidden from his mother and the police. They are collectively responsible for supporting what looks like an ongoing sort of magical thinking that is dangerous. Now, many religious traditions have this concept of evil spirits, of dealing with that. I was raised Catholic, I know they do. But this business of somehow magically stealing a child from the womb, and your child is actually my child, brings gravely into question the judgment of this group of people. To say that no medication is necessary, even while the child appears to be having repeated seizures in front of them. This belief that the child will return as Jesus and will then direct them in some sort of future acts of getting rid of institutions. This is from the children. This is not police speculation. This is from the mouths of babes. It is unrealistic thinking to the degree that it raises grave questions about their judgment, and the court needs to consider their judgment in all of these actions. when you consider releasing them from custody.
Well, I think the state has a burden of presenting evidence of dangerousness, and that's what you've been arguing so far.
Yes, Your Honor.
You have not argued that anything about how there are no conditions of release that would reasonably protect the community.
Well, and so,
So I don't know very much about these people from the evidence that you have provided to me today. I didn't hear anything about the condition of the children, which is something that I kind of expected to hear. So if you'll kind of go on to that second
Well,
problem, Mr. Hassan.
okay, I can't,
Unless you're not finished.
no, I mean, I can't tell you much about the individual children once they were gotten out of the compound, except that they are in the custody of CYFD. But, Your Honor, what the evidence has told you is that they were in the line of fire, potentially, of police gunfire, and that huge risk was created by the adults that were supposedly caring for them. And that's because of their belief. And there's no indication, I think, from this evidence of any reason to think they will change that belief or change that practice, that they have abandoned it. And I know that, I mean, the court only has the evidence that we have at this point. But one, they undertook extraordinary efforts to get here in New Mexico and establish this compound. And part of the goal in doing that was hiding from law enforcement. I don't know why we might expect that they will abide by orders of the court. If they did that, especially knowing that Mr. Wahaj was wanted in Georgia for essentially kidnapping his child. You know, come here and die as a martyr reflects a belief that the court needs to be worried about. Why? What conditions can protect from this kind of thinking? I think that's the bottom line. It's so extraordinary and out of the norm, and I think out of the court's experience, certainly out of my experience, what conditions could the court impose that would protect against this kind of thinking? The family, as far as we know, has no New Mexico contacts outside of this homestead. The evidence suggests they have strongly cut family ties elsewhere. Don't tell your father. The father of 3 of these defendants. Don't tell the father. They've, imagine, quite alienated.
These defendants have any type of criminal history
I'm not aware of any, Your Honor.
other than that Mr. Wahaj's warrant?
I'm not aware of any. And so I guess that's what it comes down to, Your Honor. But this thinking and these facts are so extraordinary, and the risk of being wrong is so extraordinary. Well, the court has in front of it firearms and a sort of secretive compound for this family, unusual training of children to use these firearms in a way that relates to combat, not to hunting, not to home protection. But the rest of the evidence suggests combat. And so I asked the court what conditions can protect from this kind of thinking. And it seems to me that the ordinary conditions that the court can impose cannot. So we asked the court to grant the motion and keep them detained. Thank you, Your Honor.